Well, welcome to Magnet Paranormal Talk. I'm William Saunders.
My name is Will Saunders. I'm his son.
Together, we are the Wonder Twins,
Mhm.
and we activate our Wonder Twin powers. Um, or you could say we're the Wills of the Clan McSaunders. So we're happy to be able to sit down and actually do a project together. You know, it's nice to be able to work work with my boy because I don't think this I think this is truly the first time we've collaborated on something, and I'm thrilled to do this with you, son. How are you feeling about it?
No, I'm also thrilled. I mean, it's like I've always wanted to do a podcast, and the ability to do it with my father is crazy. And I mean, we're musicians, and we have conspiracy conspiracy theory talks, and we talk about a lot of different stuff. So it just makes sense to do a podcast. It just makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah, yep. And the reason why I wanted to do this and specifically do it with the folks that we've got lined up for guest is because I wanted to start with my musician friends because my musician and art friends because one, the creative mind seems to be a little bit of a magnet for some of these things, and also just by the mere fact that musicians are out at all times of the night until the wee hour of the morning, loading gear and stuff like that. So you're just in a different world sometimes. And then the whole the subculture of the service industry and stuff like that. You're just out and about in times where other people are just in bed. And then in our second season, I'd really like to do work with some first responders and military folk too, to get their opinion on some of this stuff too. But we're going to start with musicians and artists and people in the performing arts. I think that'll be a awesome way to incorporate them and gives them some love too. So let's get started. So first things up, let's talk about our sponsor for this show. Our pilot is sponsored by Central Standard Theater. Check them out at www.cstkc.com. They're going to have Big Trouble in Little Yalta at the Just Off Broadway Theater in Kansas City on July 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. If you get a chance, support live theater and get out to see them. So first up, we've got here News of the Weird. And so in this segment for News of the Weird, I'm gonna pick a couple things out of the news, or will too, and we want to have our guests kind of just kind of give their 2 cents on what they think of some of these headlines that come out. It might not be that particular day, but it'll be something from that week or something that's recent in the headlines. So for this pilot episode, I picked a couple that I found on watching a YouTube channel called Third Phase of the Moon, which is a really cool channel. I subscribe to them. If you get a chance, check them out. The link's down below for their YouTube channel. And so this first video that I'm getting ready to play is done by an amateur astronomer. This is from the ground. They're looking through a telescope at the moon, and this is what they shot. And as you can see, it's an object that is casting a shadow on the lunar surface. Now, so could this be CGI? Sure. When it's blown up, it doesn't give much of a semblance of telltale signs of that. It's not matching what the pixels are around it. So, somebody who does just a shitload of work in Photoshop, I'm not necessarily seeing any real telltale signs that this is a fabricated piece. Although I would really have to have the raw footage, the original footage, in order to really tell that. So, son, what do you think about that? Here, I'm going to play it again.
What I think is, if it's not man-made, like China had that mission to come to the moon first, and they're very
Yep.
advanced. If it's not that, I don't think it's Americans, so I think it'd be something of ET origin.
Yeah, that's that's a good point. I do think that with all the we've got the Chinese, you've got Russian, you've got the EU, you've got India, so you got a whole bunch of people launching stuff at the moon. This could very well be but it's based upon this. The thing that's weird about it is the size. Based on the size of that, I mean that would have to be several hundred feet in diameter or in width to really cast a shadow on the moon that big. So if whatever it is, it's huge if it's real. So that's that one. And then this is a daytime UFO that also from the same video that I was checking out from Third Phase. This one shows, and unfortunately, I don't have the origins of the date and where these were filmed at. But this is during the daytime. This is where the image is reversed, so you can kind of see that there's like these tentacle things that are hanging from it. And now my original thoughts on this when I first saw this, Will, was that this could be a balloon. But the thing is with the balloon, either it has to be either completely still as far as no atmospheric, changes and no wind. But it also could be, I mean, I don't see any obvious signs of this being some form of CGI. And to me, it looks very credible. What's your take on this one?
I think you can see it kind of rotating a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, which tells me that I don't think it's a balloon. It could be, with a little bit of wind, it'd have to be a really big balloon.
Yeah.
But I definitely think it's real. I think that's a real video.
Yeah, I think it's physical. I think whatever it is, I think it's probably there.
Yeah. And I have no idea what those tentacle things are. They could just be, like there for looks, or they could have a specific purpose. Who knows? Maybe those are tubes that, extract things or bring things up into it.
Yeah,
could be a lot of different theories into that. But I definitely think it's credible. I definitely think it's real from what I've seen from it. You see a little bit of red.
Yeah, I saw that.
Which that throws me off a lot. And a lot of UFOs aren't completely in the physical world, but this is one of those where it's like very clear. It's in this world. It's in this plane. It's in this dimension.
Yeah, and I've watched so many videos of craft to where they simply just vanish. It's not it's not a matter of that they zipped out of sight or anything else like that. They just quite literally fade out of existence, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. So that brings us to our next segment, which is called "There I Was, No Shit." And so here's how this works: is back when I was in the Army, we had a rule with my friends and I, which was, if you're telling a story, if it's made up, if you're telling a lie, then you're supposed to say once upon a time, and then you tell your story. However, if it's a true story, then you're supposed to say, there I was, no shit. So this is one of my stories that's a true story, that one of many that I'll end up sharing during the course of this show. But I want to talk to you about one of the UFOs or UAPs that I saw at the house that you first lived in off of Wallace Street, which is Wallace is basically, it's in Kansas City, but it's almost Raytown. So if you look on a map, basically where Blue Ridge Boulevard meets Gregory, there's a place called Cave Springs Park there. And the property that I had basically backed up to that park. And, I had multiple experiences while I was living at that house. Not all were UFO ones, but there's, a ton of stuff that I've told you about. But specifically, I had left to go somewhere, and it was at nighttime. So I would probably heading out to a bar to meet somebody or, do something. But it was just me and my dog. I had a giant ass Rottweiler at the time, and he was at home. And so I jumped in my car, and I'm turning to the west on Gregory, and I'm heading down Gregory Boulevard towards 435 from Raytown. And as I'm going down the road, all of a sudden, because it's well past dusk, right? And in for a split second, I thought, well, is this a nuclear explosion or something? Because in my rearview mirror, it looked like the sun, like there was a sun was rising or setting, and it's like 9 o'clock at night, 8 o'clock, 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. And so I'm going down the road, and I see this thing getting closer. So I'm thinking, like, is something going to ram into me, from behind? It's like a crazy something out of a horror movie. Like you got the speeding truck going to come up behind you. And so I'm paying close attention to it. I'm looking at my side mirror. I'm looking at my rearview mirror, and all of a sudden I see this thing, and it's probably about 10 to 15 feet in diameter. And it's an orange colored glowing orb, and it is just above the tree line. So it's just above the power lines, just above the tree line, and it's moving as lightning fast straight down Gregory Boulevard, heading towards the highway. And I quite literally looked in my rearview mirror, looked in the side mirror, then I looked in the window up at it, and then I watched it, and I watched it through the windshield the rest of the way as far as I could see it. And it was, it made the whole highway light up. And I'd never seen anything like it. A large orb. And, it didn't do anything. It just quite literally, there was no play on the electronics. There was no lights going out of the car or anything else like that. It quite literally just was, and it was as quickly as it was coming up behind me, it was gone. And that's just, that was probably the third time in my life I had seen something that I couldn't explain, couldn't put logic to. At first I concluded that it had to be ball lightning is the only thing I could come up with, which is a phenomenon. It's a atmospheric phenomenon. But after doing more research on ball lightning, I've since had ruled that out because ball lightning doesn't behave the way that did.
There was a video on the same video that we were just talking about where it was like on the moon, and it was white. It was a white looking UFO. And there's a lot of things like, it could be in this dimension, half in this dimension, or fully in this dimension. But a lot of those things are like translucent, or it can just be light. Like in that one video, it was just light. So it could have been a UFO, could have been, I don't know, ghost truck, flying ghost abduction, Like you could never understand or comprehend what that was, until you start seeing more and more things of that nature, and they start coming out with theories and stuff, and you can relate to them.
This is a segment that we call "That Shit Is Real," maybe, could be, or hell nah. So basically, the way this works is I'm gonna show you a couple of theories or statements, and you're going to tell me, is that shit real? Or maybe it could be real, or a straight up hell nah. Okay. Okay. All right. So here we go. Because you have not seen these. So this is going to be interesting. So first one, non-human biological entities are walking among us posing as human. What do you think?
Yes. That shit is real.
Okay.
I believe
Any
that.
you think that's what's going on?
Well, I mean, we could take it back as far as the Anunnaki. I mean, those look just like us. Or we could talk about lizard people. Like, I think lizard people are real, and I think the Anunnaki are real. So either way, it's real.
All right, fair enough. I don't know. I maybe. I think it's a strong maybe. If I mean, here's my 2 cents on this, is that if a civilization is capable of making the means of getting here either through interstellar travel or interdimensional travel, then chances are they would have the technology or the means to fool us into thinking, well, that's not Julie, that's
Yeah.
So there's that. Okay, cool. All right, so our next one, UFOs are, which leads me right into this. UFOs are not extraterrestrial, but rather interdimensional in origin. Is that shit real? Maybe, or hell nah?
Well, I mean, I think they're extraterrestrial just because there's a video of a court hearing from government officials talking about what's happening within the government and UFOs, aliens, and stuff. And they definitely said they had a biological specimen that didn't look like us, that hailed from outer space. I also think that this is real because, I mean, I think some of them are interdimensional. I don't think you can rule one out with the other just because so many of these UFOs are, in fact, within the fourth dimension and hailing inside and out of our dimension. I don't think you can rule one out.
I agree. I think that if these are real, then chances are they're not mutually exclusive. They could be both. I mean, they could be half of them could be interdimensional, half of it could be from a different planet. I agree. All right, so next up, there are underwater bases in our oceans.
That's something I cannot tell you. I've not done my research on underwater bases. I know
Well,
Atlantis was the whole fucking Earth at one point.
I can tell you that that there is some speculation that there's something off of the coast of San Diego. There's a little shelf there, and then it's kind of wild. We'll have to do a follow up on this, but there's actually an anomaly that shows up with radar imagery of the ocean floor. It's just this big giant round object somewhere off the coast of San Diego. And that's interesting. But there's a lot of USOs that our Navy reports. Christopher Columbus had one of these sightings, seeing something like blue lights going underneath the water next to the Pina and the Santa Maria. So yeah, I think it's a possibility. Our oceans are less explored than anything else on this planet. So could there be? Sure. Yeah, I agree with you. Okay, so now The government is currently flying reverse engineered craft. What do you think?
Say nothing. I know it's yes. I know that's real. I know that's fucking real. There's been too many government officials coming out saying that they're reverse engineering alien spacecraft. That it goes as far as back as Bob Lazar. I'm sure he went far as back before that. Like, I know that's real.
All right. And the last one is UFOs have been around for as long as we have.
I'd say it's completely theory. I think that's a wonderful theory when you talk about the Anunnaki, but that's maybe so. All of these topics that you have given me could be real, and a couple of them are more likely than not. I'd say this one is one of those.
Okay, fair enough. Very good. Yeah. You know, the thing is, when I think about this, is about have they been around as long as we have? You know, there's too many celestial phenomenon that has been recorded through, cave paintings and petroglyphs and all kinds of stuff that kind of even, stuff in the Bible, that kind of points to the potential for there to be an extraterrestrial or interdimensional presence from the dawn of time forward, so I don't preclude it from being true, but it just I always get back to if that's the case, then why not just either basically shit or get off the pot? What are you doing? Are you, if you've been here around here this long, why the silent treatment? Were we bad? Did we not cut the mustard for just engaging us? And maybe it's just that they look at us like we look at ants. We're just not high enough on the evolutionary scale to really mess with. So that's a hard one to know about. So our next segment, moving right along, is called the Mount Rushmore. And so for this one, what you asked me to get my top or my four my Mount Rushmore of UFO stories. So that's what I prepared. So the first one that I'm going to go over is the Kecksburg incident. And the Kecksburg incident happened in December 9th of 1965. So, I wasn't even a year old when this happened. And it was basically a fireball that was seen over 6 U.S. states and Canada. And this object landed in Kecksburg, Pennsylvania. And, eyewitnesses, say that the military drug, out these flatbed trucks, and, people were told, you keep your mouth shut and everything else. But what they retrieved was basically an acorn-shaped object, is what eyewitnesses have described. But the crazy thing is, most people speculate that the Nazis who were experimenting with a time device using mercury, liquid mercury, and trying to figure out gravity, how to counter gravity, they think created basically a time machine. And so this thing that was found resembles this Nazi Bell device that is a documented thing. And the thing was that they both have these crazy looking characters, across the bottom of them. So that's on my Mount Rushmore, only because it pulls together, a bunch of crazy things. One is this, maybe Nazis to the UFO phenomenon. But this particular one it's uncanny that what was reported, from these witnesses is very similar to these drawings and stuff we see of the Nazi bell. So that's one. My next one is the 1561 Nuremberg incident. Before I move on to that one, had you heard of the Kecksburg one, son?
I haven't heard
Nope.
of these last two, no.
Okay, cool. So this one's crazy. So the 1561 Nuremberg incident basically is this. This is a woodcut that is from that period. And basically this occurred on April 14th of 1561. And basically there was this celestial phenomenon that, the whole town, it was witnessed by thousands of people, look up in the sky and they see what they describe as like this epic battle, between these. And as you can see, there's like these cylindrical shaped craft along with these wing shaped craft, along with these cross shaped craft. And then you got this giant long, looks like a Star Destroyer from Star Wars, that big black spaceship there, so you got, all these, people witnessing it, and, they don't know what they're seeing. So they describe it the only way they know how. And so this is a actual woodcut that was produced and, published, to, as their version of a newspaper to show, what they saw. And, experts say, that, well, it could have been, some just natural weather phenomenon like sundogs. I don't know what sundogs are, but, I just find it fascinating that there was very specifically these specific shapes that people were witnessing, and that it was captured in such a fashion. So that's on my Mount Rushmore, just because it's so crazy. It's like, who does this? I mean, how else could you possibly interpret this? As if you got all these people saying this is what they saw, and that it's some form of battle, and that these things are, crashing and stuff. I mean, it seems pretty clear what that probably was. So, my third one is the Rendlesham Forest incident. Now, this took place in England, in the Rendlesham Forest, which is, I can't remember the name of the Air Force base, the British Air Force base, but basically we had people's, the U.S. had people's, a station there. And what they found, and basically this is in Suffolk, Great Britain. So this is a picture of the forest that, where this thing landed in. But the way the story goes is, there was a report that, these folks seen this light in the forest, and then they sent some of the MPs out there to take a look at it. And they thought they saw something land in the forest. And the next night, it returns, and this Lieutenant Colonel Charles Halt goes out there to look at this thing, and they claim to have, seen this thing in a clearing, this kind of a triangle shaped craft that had, these markings and things on the side. And there's a guy, touched the device, and then years later he spits out all this binary code that, has this message about, for humanity and stuff. Now, whether or not, any of that's true or not, who knows, but I do find it fascinating that Lieutenant Colonel Charles Halt did have an audio recording that he made at the time, because this is in 1980. This is December 1980. And actually, I had heard things about this incident while I was in the service, stationed overseas. It's the first time I had heard about this one. I was like, well, what? And actually, I heard it from some of my Ramstein friends. But anyway, the skeptic in the logical explanation was that this was either a lighthouse that people kind of misunderstood as being, some kind of, luminous object. But, the sworn testimony, from several witnesses of the people that went out the second night was that, no, there was a craft that landed and it shot straight back up in the sky. But it's such a strange, anytime there's something that where you have multiple witnesses, and somebody actually has audio recording, because that's how they took all their notes, saying we're approaching the object, and all kinds of stuff. It's worth a look up. It's featured on every major show that talks about UFOs and UAPs. They will always eventually get to the story of the Rendlesham Forest incident, but that was a really wild one, and it left a mark on me when I heard about it. And then years later, when I heard about it again, I was like, oh, wow, that's really, really crazy. And then my fourth one on my Mount Rushmore has to be the Roswell crash. It's just too classic. I mean, and the reason why, it's on here is because it's just the granddaddy of them all, I mean, everybody knows this story, it's the Roswell newspaper, released this story. This basically all went down in June and July of 1947, where this ranch in outside of Roswell, New Mexico, had this farm, and he basically called and said, hey, there's this debris all over my, one of my fields. And so when they came out, the news story broke that, that basically we had captured, this flying saucer. And then, within days, they, basically printed this cover up to say, oh no, this wasn't any kind of UFO crash disc, because they specifically, in this story here, they actually said flying disc, that they captured a flying saucer. There was a disc that they retrieved. So when the cover story, got told, it was blamed on a weather balloon. And then, in the later on, I think maybe a decade ago, maybe it's been 20 years, the military or Department of Defense came out and said, oh no, it wasn't really weather balloon. That was just a made up story. It was really a Project Mogul, which is these dummies that they were, tossing out, balloons at high altitudes to see what the impact would be, when they hit the ground or whatever, or radiation or something to that extent. But it was when I actually remember this press briefing where the guy was giving this story, and I was thinking to myself the whole time, God, this is even a suckier bullshit story than the first one you told. So yeah, but anyway, those are my Mount Rushmore of UFO stories. Any thoughts on any of those?
I think my favorite one was either that first one or that second one. Those both were just so crazy, especially that Nazi bell.
Yeah.
It looked so like. But I don't think if the Nazis ever did do that, Hitler's in 3021. He never died. He's in 3021.
Well, the I would encourage anybody who's curious to research the Kecksburg, Pennsylvania incident. It's a neat story. You have to check it out. I want to mention to everybody that we got new content that comes out Thursdays at 9 p.m. every week. This is our pilot episode, and we will begin with guests for our episode 1. We hope that you will check us out. And for myself and for my son Will, we want to thank you for joining us. And it's strange out there, so keep it weird.